Hey, welcome to Janktown. Will here, and today we're gonna do a budget brew of one of my favorite cards coming out of the Lord of the Rings set, Lord of the Nazgûl. As at the time of this recording, if we check MTG Goldfish, this deck clocks in at about $103.71, excluding our commanders and lands, of course. But before we get into it, if you'd like to support the channel, please leave a like, share, and subscribe because it really helps the channel out, I'm not gonna lie. And with that out of the way, let's get to brewing. The Witchking, aka Lord of the Nazgûl. It's a 5-mana value 4/3 Wraith novel with flying, and it has a weird protection clause that'll probably be rarely relevant in our commander game. It's got protection from ring bearers, but its triggered ability reads, whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we create a 3/3 Black Wraith token with menace. Then if we control 9 or more Wraiths, the Wraiths we control have base power and toughness 9/9 until end of turn. 9/9! That ability is pretty cool, and it's pretty much what we're going to be building the deck around. A couple things to note though. First off, the 9/9 effect only lasts until end of turn. So even if we hit our goal of creating 9 Wraiths, the 9/9 effect is only going to be for that turn. Hope we win. No, but seriously, we gotta work for it each and every time. It also means that don't create your 9th Wraith on someone else's end step, because, the Wraith will show up, we'll get our big 9/9 effect, and the turn will end. So by the time it gets back to our turn, poof, we don't have Coco Crunch. Secondly, keep in mind that this ability is a cast trigger. And so what does that mean? Well, on the upside, if our spell is countered, we still get the Wraith, and if we have 9, we'll still get that big 9/9 effect. But on the downside, the spell resolves after our ability resolves. Say we have 7 Wraiths and we cast a clone instant or clone sorcery. We'll create the 8th Wraith first, and then the ability checks to see if we have 9, which we don't, and then after that, it'll clone and we will create our 9th Wraith. And that does nothing. We'll go over the different 7 themes of the deck, the card choices for each one, then afterwards we'll end the video with some nice deck stats. These 7 themes consist of our usuals of ramp, removal, and draw, but then I'll cover the other themes first, namely cantrips, tempo, Nazgûls, and something we like to call UVP or utilities, bombs, and pets. Cheap cantrips are a perfect way of being able to quickly trigger the Witch King's ability. Birthday Escape, Op, Brainstorm, Preordained, Action Probe, these all cost 0 to 1, and they can be fired off fairly quickly. I also like the Op and Brainstorm are instants, so we can play this on someone else's turn, or, be able to do a neat little combat trick. Let's say we already have 9 Wraiths. At 2 mana value, I recommend running Impulse, Telling Time, and Born Upon a Wind. Impulse and Telling Time just lets us see a lot of cards, and Born Upon a Wind lets us do some shenanigans, maybe cast a board wipe at instant speed. Finally, Frantic Search. While technically 3 mana, it's practically free. And so being able to untap our lands lets us cast another spell. And since we're running Dimir, ramp isn't, the easiest thing to come by, so we're gonna need all the help we can get. Accumulating a border wraith is still pretty hard though. And so while tempo is typically a 60 card strategy, it has a lot of value for what we're trying to do. First, our counterspell suite. An Offer You Can't Refuse and Spell Pierce are 1 mana value spells, while Negate and Arcane Denial are 2 mana value. So I placed a premium here on some of the lower mana value spells, because we're going to want to be able to interact while playing our commander out as early as possible. Plus, a lot of the typical removal and board wipes are instants and sorceries, and that's why I placed a premium on being able to interact with non-creature spells. Higher mana value counter spells are Unwind, which costs 3, but also reopens up our mana, while Commit Memory is on the pricier side at 4, but the wheel effect's a great way to refill our hands and shuffle our cantrips back into our library. We aren't running much graveyard recursion, and so shuffling our graveyard back doesn't really hurt us too much, but at the same time, it might hose some of these graveyard-based decks. Speaking of protection, Slip Out the Back and March of Swirling Mist are a pair of phase-out spells, and we can use these defensively, but we can also use it offensively in that we can make an opponent lose their turn, or at least lose their attack. And since mana is at a premium, Snap is a 2 mana value free spell and it bounces a creature back to hand. Again, this is also something that can be used offensively or defensively depending on the situation. Finally, Ensnare has an alternate cost and it can be played for free. It can tap down all the blockers. If we play it before our turn, we're coming in for a big attack. Or it can tap down a large attack before it just comes at our face. So everything I've mentioned so far are instants and sorceries, which are great for helping our commander produce wraiths, but it doesn't mean we can't play some wraiths ourselves. And what better way than playing all 9 Nazgûl? They pump our board when they enter the battlefield, and we can bring all 9 in the deck. However, at the time when I brewed this, the cheapest one was already just a little over $4. So that's already 40% off the budget of our deck. When I started recording, the price had already actually gone up. I think the cheapest one was at $6 or $7. And so, if you want an alternative, here are a bunch of the wannabes, the spice ghouls, if you will. Yeah, tell me what you want, what you really want, I'll tell you. If you want to be a Nazgûl, you can get with these friends. Changeling Outcast, Mothas Changeling, Mistwalker, Canoptic Wraith, Dirtwater Wraith, and yes, the Witchking of Angmar. I chose these because they have built-in evasion, and so when they become 9/9s, you can really do some damage. Other wannabes I recommend bringing in are Bloodline Pretender, which grows every time we create a Wraith token, a Moi Boy Changeling, which can turn our other non-Wraith creatures, we'll cover those later, we can turn them into Wraiths, and it's just helpful for getting into that all-important 9 count. And finally, Black Market Connections. Yes, this is a $20 card in our budget brew, and it just goes to show how expensive these Nazgûls are getting. Obviously, Black Market Connections also creates us treasure, draws us a card, but it creates 3/2 Wraiths, so pretty good. Funnily enough, if we do opt for these wannabes, they actually bring down the price of our deck. So we go from $103 to just below $100 at $99.58. UVP time! Teferi's Ageless Insight is an awesome card, and it'll turn our cantrips into actual draw spells. God Eternal Kefnet and Gale are repair creatures that can get us some extra mileage out of our instants and sorceries by essentially letting us cast them twice. As Foretold is a powerful enchantment that nets us a free spell per turn, and since we're running a lot of low mana value interaction, it doesn't take much to get it online. It'll allow us to even play counter spells even if we're tapped out. Irenicus' Vile Duplication and Spark Double are a pair of 4-drop clone effects, and it'll let us clone our commander, essentially doubling our Wraith production, while Sea Double is one of the great underrated clone spells. It can copy a counter on the stack, it can copy a Wraith, it can even copy a Spark Double. It's pretty versatile, and I think it usually overperforms. Lastly, Stolen Identity. It's a little high mana value at 6, but it gives us a copy of any creature, like a Spark Double 3/3 Wraith or our opponent's best creature, and it also is a repeatable cast trigger whenever we deal combat damage. With deck-specific themes out of the way, it's time to take our vitamins. So ramp is essential, and we'll be running Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Wayfarer's Bauble, Dimir Signet, Talisman of Dominance, Sky Diamond, and Mind Stone. These are just ways to ensure that we can get Lord of the Nazgûl out a turn early, or maybe, right on curve, but with a protection spell in our back pocket. A couple of seemingly group-huggy cards though are Bugnard's Everfull Purse and Hithlane Rope. So they go around the table, and yeah, they'll help the table ramp too, but players are greedy. They'll want to ramp or they'll want to draw, and so we'll get these back in no time. Midnight Clock is a mana rock that also serves as a wheel in 4 turn cycles, and so likely by that time we might have already played out our entire hand just playing all these cantrips, and so the 7 new cards are gonna be a welcome sight. Lastly, some rituals. Dark Ritual and High Tide are classics that still fit in our budget and can net us some pretty explosive turns. For removal, we're going fairly light, mainly because we already have the tempo theme, which lets us interact with other players. Vendetta is a 1 mana value conditional removal spell. It's not the best, and if you have the budget, Dismember is probably the better way to go, but this is a decent budget removal spell. Crippling Fear is a one-sided wipe in our favor, and Massacre is likely gonna be a free spell if ever we go up against any deck playing white. It'll just mow down these tokens, while also, more importantly, save our 3/3 Wraiths. Mandate of Abaddon is a Warhammer spell. Flavor fail, I'm sorry. But the effect is just too good. Imagine playing this and we get to trigger our 9/9 ability. It'll just be like a one-sided board wipe in our favor. And finally, there's Raise the Palisade. So we don't have the budget to fit in Cyclonic Rift, but this kinda comes close to it. We keep our board of Wraiths and we get to bounce everything else. Draw. Cantrips don't really refill our hand, they just help us cycle through it, and so we're still gonna need some proper draw spells to make sure that our deck can properly function. Tainted Indulgence, Night's Whisper, Winged Words, and Words of Wisdom, these are all low to the ground draw spells that just net us some cards and make sure that we at least have a grip. Call of the Ring, Wavebreak Hippo, and Archmage Emeritus. Archmage? Archmage. Not quite sure how to pronounce that word. Anyway, these give us steady card advantage throughout the game, provided that they can stick around. Time reversal and game plan are wheels that shuffle graveyards back in, and again, we don't really run a lot of graveyard recursion, so we don't really get hurt by that effect, but it also incidentally hoses our opponent's graveyards. Game plan in particular is a card I like, because usually when you're playing at a table, there's gonna be at least 1 or 2 other people who are gonna want to see the wheel happen, so we might get this at a discounted rate of -2, -3, even -5 if we're super lucky. Final card of the deck, Ring Sight. It's not that good of a tutor, and it's even not that good, but it's just really so flavorful, and I want to play the card. Our popular targets for tutoring out would be Spark Double or the Vile Duplication, but if you need a Wrath, then we can go Raise the Palisade, or if you're running out of gas, then maybe, the Emeritus or the Ageless Insight, always versatile, and without any clear-cut game entering the deck, it can still make for a non-linear experience, or that variance, which makes Casual Commander, at least in my opinion, a lot of fun. I promised you all stats, and so here are the highlights. 12 ramp spells, 5 removal, 10 draw, 9 cantrips, 10 tempo, 9 Nazguls or Spice Ghouls, depending which way you went, and 8 UBP. So if you want to run a non-budget version, put in your Cyclonic Rifts, your Sakashimas, your Toxic Deluges, at least you have a shell to work off of. The Spice Ghouls version I featured here, though, runs an adjusted curve of 2.44, so pretty low to the ground, and you're sure to be able to play a lot of spells, hopefully in quick succession. This is adjusted though, meaning I'm assuming cards like Massacre and Jetaction Probe will really just cost us 0. As for card types, 14 creatures, including our commander, 10 artifacts, 4 enchantments, 36 instants and sorceries, and 36 lands. Lots of sources of Wraith production, and hopefully, with this brew, you'll be able to conquer Middle-earth and your commander pod. And that's it for this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our budget take on Lord of the Nazgûl. As always, I'd appreciate you supporting the channel by liking, sharing, and hitting the subscribe button. I'm planning a few more Lord of the Rings brews before we hopefully get into some gameplay videos. But until then, stay inspired, friends, and I'll see you next time.